Welcome to Trading Lounge. We'll look at Bitcoin and then the dollar bonds and yields and maybe even the euro as well. And then we'll have a look at precious metals, base metals and energy. So with Bitcoin here, we've got a roughly nice clean double top there. We've seen a little bit of selling there. Short-term sellers obviously would be selling at a double top there. As WD Gann would say, double tops are never the end of the trend, so we will be going higher, but as expected there will be selling at this point, and that's what we're seeing. At the same time, this narrative of the ETF inflows is still coming in around 10 billion, so, and then we've got the halving from 900 coins down to 450 coins. You know the story. The narrative is strong, the trend is strong. We will see a we are seeing and we will see a correction at this old high here from the short-term sellers, and then we'll see it resume to the upside. The question is what type of correction here? How long is it going to last? All of these sorts of things. As we discussed over the last couple of sessions, is that there's a couple of different ways to view this here. Originally we were looking at different ways to view this, and I think that what's the best way to sort of look at this here? Well, first of all, this trend here is not long enough to be a wave 1, 2 and 3 here. And then if we also look at this move here as 1 and 2 here, and then we could put wave 3 there, which would be the obvious thing to do, but I'm not keen on that either, because if we look at the length of trend, if we take this length here, for example, of wave 1, and then we put this here, well then this wave 3 here is still too short at this point, and we would expect it to be longer. So even though we have 5 waves up here, it's still too short. So I know it's a little bit tricky to wrap your head around these situations, is that yes, we can put it as wave 3 here, we can put a wave 4 here, and then we can shrink a wave 5 into this space here, and then we could top that with a wave 3. So that's one possibility, and then this wave 5 here needs to be shorter than this one here. The other way to view this here too is to look at this as wave 1 here. That might be a little ambitious for some folks, and then we can look at this as 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 here, and continuing to build to the upside. Now as I mentioned, that's quite sort of ambitious, but when we have a look at the previous cycles within Bitcoin, we can see that the trends here normally last for 1,070 odd days or something like that. It's been pretty much sort of standard. So that will take the top of this trend here into roughly late 2025 as a sort of target point for this, and we'd been looking at that yesterday as well with this particular chart here. I'm just going to remove this noise here, So what we can kind of consider here is this is, well, that's January 26, December 25. So in a bit of a nutshell, if you take all the cycles from the previous trends, you'll come into about October, roughly speaking, here nor there at that point. And if you were squaring time and price up, you'd be up around the 280 mark at the end of this trend. So the end of 2025, 250, 280, some up there would be a natural, normal flow of taking in consideration normal trends and corrections within Bitcoin. So in this case here, I've got this labeled as 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, and then a smaller 1 and 2 in here, and then building to the upside here, still moving further up. So that will take us into that particular cycle at that 250, 280 to the upside. I won't go into all of that right now, but we went over this sort of yesterday. But we are definitely in a trend. As I mentioned, it's just really about how far this is going to pull back here. So let's just sort of focus on this little area here a little bit. So let's just assume for a moment that this is a wave 1 and wave 2 here, right? We're on the weekly chart here. We can go in and have look at a smaller one in a moment, but let's just assume. So this means that this would pull back into the 50,000. That would be the pocket, the 61.8% for that. Now, it's not like these other trends here, by the by, have actually pulled back. This wave 1 here that can go over here, this wave 1 and wave 2 pullback here was about 30, well, about close to the 38.2% retracement level. Take that with a pinch of salt. This particular move here from wave 1 here, because it's too small to call a wave 3, so you've got to call it a wave 1, and this pulled back 38.40% as well, or between 40 and 50% here. So it's pulling, because if it's going to be 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, the third of the third of the third, they're not pulling back they're pulling back quite shallowly. So to pull back to 50,000 is, to me, a little bit of a long shot. I would probably say, the 30-40% here. And I would also be looking for, let's just switch to a intraday chart. I think that we're working on around 5,000. So we'll just go into this area here. So looking for this top to the upside here is that I mean, technically we could pull, this could pull back enough at this point, but I just think that we just need to be mindful of some sort of ABC and an ABC and then further up to the upside. I haven't actually pulled that apart there. I just want to have a look at the crypto index, which is the top 10, just to have a look in here to see if I can see this here. Well, looks like that makes it a little bit tricky there, doesn't it? Looks we could go 1 and 2 here, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the third wave, the fourth wave, and the fifth wave. That works. If that was the case, then we'll see this rally to the upside, pulling back here 50-60%. So we've got a little bit more to move up here before this moves back down here for another leg here. So it's basically, you could look at this here as a little 1 and 2 here, and a 3 here, and a 4 here, and a 5 here. It seems to be expanding to the downside, but I suppose there is a case for not including that little structure there, and looking at this as an A and a B and a C wave here. So we could say that anything tested support on top of the 50-60% pullback would take you higher. But I think I'm just giving the bad news here, and this would be that this leg here roughly would be equal this leg over here as an A and a B and a C. So we've either got that or we just go straight up from there. So it's not a huge deal at this point. I mean, that looks like an A and a B and a C here, and we can go straight up from this point. So this is also a bit of a classic trading levels pattern at the 65 here as well. So this pattern here, the arrival, the reaction, the first high above the level to create the double top, the sell-off here, and people coming in and buying the dip and finding support on the level and going up again. That's pretty much what this is here. So one of the things that you could do here is that just looking at the 50-60% retracement level here, which is interesting really because it comes really quite close to that 65 mark here, so just in here. So if as a trader, we'll talk about this later on, but if you got a smaller classic trading levels pattern here, then you can look to go long at that point, based on that 65,000 being a tested support here. So anyway, looking very bullish. So the other sort of flip side to this here, the other correctional pattern that we could view here as well, is having this as a wave 4. So let's have a look at that. So I'm just flipped over to a daily chart. This is my sort of primary count here, but yeah, you can see this here, looking, I've got this as 1 and 2 here, and then 1 and 2 here, and then 1 and 2 here. So if you're going to look at this as a wave 4 here, you can see how short this is compared to this one here, right? So it just doesn't make any sense to me, but, we'll play it out, and this would be here. So this would come back to, this would be the 38.2% in here. So really it's not much difference from the 1 and 2 because, the previous one we just had a look at, because if this was, if we'd viewed this as 5 waves down here, which doesn't have to be, and then we had a B wave coming back to these old highs here in the 65 and the 61.8%, and then came down here anyway. So it doesn't matter if it's wave 4 or wave 1 anyway, we'd end up doing this here. So yeah, that's that. So yeah, look, the short-term traders have done their profit taking here, and that. I won't go into the CME and look at the open interest from the hedge funds or anything of that nature at this point. There's no need to. We can pretty much clearly see that we're in a strong trend, and there will be profit taking from the short-term traders. Yeah, we'll be back on track there. So what we need to do now is just want to go over and have a quick look at the other markets. So to do that, I just want to let's okay, so we want to have a look at the dollar, the US dollar, the bonds and the yields here. So with the US dollar here, we've been looking at this here as an ABC pattern here, but this also could be counted in different ways here. It could be counted as a WXY. I can even get an impulse wave out of it. But so we need to see a breakdown. The reason that we're thinking that it needs to have a turn either right here or another little high here is really based on these two here. So the TLT bonds and the yields here. So we have a look at the yields here. Let me just clean things up a little bit here. So what we're looking for in a nutshell is we're just looking for the market to break down here. So so we've got the move down here in 5 waves, and we've been looking for an ABC. So if this is the ABC here, if that's in play here, and it is overlapping the top of wave 1 now, and that's pretty clear. So it's probably a turn in the market, and we also think too that we've got gold moving down, so that means that that's another way of looking at the market as well. So the yields here as an A and a B wave and a C wave moving down here, that would follow. We can see that it's rolling over here. We still need the dollar to roll over. I'll just have a look at what what Malik is doing here on the US dollar. He's got the same thing, I think. Yeah, so he's got the same move here, but we're waiting for confirmation. So if we're waiting for confirmation here, we should see it on the flip side on the euro dollar as well. And I know the bunds as well. The bunds are pretty much in the same position as the US bonds as well. And we've got Lagarde doing interest rates, this thing. So we'll be looking for a long trade set up here. And if we get a long trade set up there, without going into a whole FX spin, we'll also look for the Aussie as well to move into that area. So we'll see that. But while these yields, the dollar moving down, the yields moving down, the bonds moving up. Okay, so they've popped up overnight, so that's good. I think we had a rollover here on the futures contract, so it's difficult to count 5 waves down here. It looks a little bit like 3 waves, so I'll just be a little bit careful because we haven't met our target yet. I don't have a nice clean impulse wave up here yet. It's getting there. The volume's looking quite good, all those sort of things. So in reverse of the yields, we'll see the yields and the dollar move down. We'll see the bonds and I mean, this is for the stock market as well. We've seen those yields move down. We'll push the equity market to the upside, and also gold as well as the dollar drops and the yields drop and the bonds move up. So we're on the right track. We've got the turn in the market. That's one of the main things, and yeah, so that without going into a long story, that drags us over to the to the precious metals here, and we have been looking. I'll just look at the other chart that I'm looking at here with US spot gold here. So I'll just finish these up here a little bit here. So we're looking for this here. We've got some long entries in this particular market as well. So we're looking at those in the commodity check here in the portfolio. So I'll just go into here. We had a couple of open on the E-mini futures contracts here, which are the MGF contracts for this. So that's sort of going okay at that point. I'll just have a look at, yeah, so Sammy's got the silver contracts here, having a rally here first and then dropping. I'll just see what's cooking on the gold here. Just bear with me a second. See what he's got here. Probably much the same. We might actually have a look at some of these other soft commodities too, while we're not exactly right now, but very shortly. Gold. So we'll just have a look at US spot gold. Yeah, so he's basically on the same track. He's just tracking it up slightly differently. But yeah, that target of 2200 up there is really what we're sort of looking at this point. So that's good for that. I won't go in and do a whole spin on this, but we can move the stops up. So yeah, we can move it. I just want to keep it under group 2 because I don't have 2100 as 2000 is the major level. Then we have 1, 2 and 3 here that make up minor group 1. So we only move stops when we have the next level as a tested support, and this is the main number here, and it's not tested support yet. So what you say, what about if the market just keeps going straight up? Well, our rules are that at the 21 here, this sub levels 1, 2 and 3 here, if this becomes the tested support here, then it's not going to pull back to this number. So so you could actually have long trades coming off the top over here, because this here now is, you know, we start from this top and then this top and then this top. If they get triggered, that means that this level here is making the support. And what it does, if this number 3 here, this 2130 here becomes the tested support, then it stops the pull from this number and it gets pulled to the next number here, which is 5. So using the Fibonacci as a price ratio of 1, 2 and 3 as group 1, the midpoint, and then group 2 number 8. So 1, 2, 3, 5 and 8 here. So it will push further up there, but we don't need to drag the stop up there in fear and get stopped out. So we'll just chill on that. Okay, so let me just have a look at my commodity list here and see what we need to look at. I'm just sort of freebasing things a little bit. So okay, so yeah, we've looked at the golds, and I'm not that interested in the silver in terms of a trade, so we want to have a look at base metals. So before we look at base metals, what I want to do is I want to have a look at China again, because this is where it's going to come from, and this is a monthly chart with a big triangle pattern here that you've seen before, with wave 3 and wave 4 over here, and coming way back into 07, 08 over here. So an A and a B and a C and a D. And I have to say it's a beautiful looking triangle. And in this last D wave here, from D to E here, if I go from monthly to weekly here, and also to the Chinese have set a target as growth at 5% overnight or yesterday. And you know, when they set targets like that, they don't like to fail, so they will put the money behind it. You know, that's the way I see it. So so we've been looking from D to E here on the weekly as an A and a B and a C wave here, and then looking to count 5 waves down here, which we could, which is fine. So to confirm things, all we need is an impulse wave up here and a support on top of 3000, and we're certainly seeing the volume come into this as well. So I'll just go to the daily chart. Now this means a lot for, obviously there's a whole story about these guys, you know, where they're buying, you know, Brazil, Australia, Canada, all of those sorts of things, and developing their own mines as well. So what we're looking for here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. So I'm still not going to bother going into this here, but I can map this out for you here as the 3, 4, 5 here, and then an ABC pattern here, and then we'll be moving up. So once we've got this developed over here, that means that we're going to see, with this push up into the third wave here, we're going to see some of these base metals play out in a stronger way. So what I'll do for that is I'm going to use our charts, Sammy's charts here for this. So let's just have a look at well, copper's the first one. Let's just have a look at that. So yeah, so we've got this little impulse wave through here as an A and a B and a C wave moving further up there. In the bigger picture here, Same as got this is the ABC here with a little impulse wave here. We'll look for an ABC. So we can look to trade copper to the upside, but also too, this is going to lift the BHPs of the world to the upsides. Okay, so and this little move here of 5 waves is in line with what's going on in China, you know, that 5 waves that I just mentioned in China. So that's really quite important, and they all sort of match up. If we look at iron ore, which is more of an Australian thing really, but and yeah, this is pretty much how I've got, well, I can see this as a wave 1 here, by the way, but an A and a B and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we need to finish off here a little bit more, but we'll get there with that. So that's showing up in, you know, if we look at Rio, we looked at Rio Tinto the other day here. So looking at Rio here as basically 1 and 2 here, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up here for 1 and ABC. I still need another little downside here as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So we're not ready yet for the iron ore, but yeah, we're sort of we're getting there on that note. And while we're here, we'll just have a look at uranium. Uranium's pretty straightforward at this point with its count. So we've got technically we've got a wave 3 up here, an A and a B and a C for wave 4. We also look to trade the ETF long again up at this particular point here. So that's going okay, and I'm just going to have a quick look at, I think I'll just go all here, and I'll just go through some of these softs here, because we want to have a look at, this is wheat, so this is a 4-hour chart for wheat, so it's still pulling down here. We don't want anything to do with that, don't need to worry about the weekly chart. This is corn here. No, I'm not interested in corn at the moment for this, not there. Soybeans, not there. Coffee's coming into the play, so cocoa's not, yeah, we can get this is a classic trading levels pattern at the 65, the medium level here. So we've got the arrival, the reaction, we'll look for the first high above the level, and then an ABC pattern here. So we're not done here yet with this, so we'll look for a chart. The accumulation process across the bottom here, squaring time and price, will see us much higher. So coffee interests me at this point. We need to find a way in with coffee on this. So that's one thing that we're going to be looking for here. And what's the other one here? No, I think that's it. Let me just check through here. Let me just check. Natural gas, we'll come back to these in a moment, with crude as well. So let me just get my bearings again here. So I think we can pretty much go over to the energy side of things at the moment. So I think that, no, I just wanted to have a quick tour with, well, first of all, I wanted to have a look at nickel. So this is nickel here, because we've been looking at the possibility of nickel having a low in place. It's still a bit sketchy and still a bit here. So what I wanted to do was just really to get the first impulse wave up here. So we've probably got 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 here. So this will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and get another little high here to make this 1 and 2 in here. So we're not there just yet with this. So we just need to play this out a little bit further. So basically I want 5 waves up with a nice little ABC pattern here. Once we've got that, then we can bring an entry in here, so we can look at nickel stocks at that point. Now, we had also been looking at lithium as well, but the ETF for lithium is too wide. It's got Samsung and Panasonic in it, so it just doesn't cut it for me. So I just want to have a look at some of these bigger stocks. So I'm going to have a look at the Chinese first. So I haven't updated this for a long time, but this is a weekly chart. So these 2 Chinese stocks here, they're $150 billion stocks, where all the other PPL and SQM and ALB, they're $30, $40 billion stocks. So, these 2 Chinese ones here are really quite big. And these guys have got interests in a lot of other countries as well, including Australia. But, yeah, as far as the crow flies here, we still need to come down here further on these, and this one, and this Aussie one here, this PLS here, this is Pilbara Minerals here. I think Gina Reinhardt has got some of this as well. So it's holding up quite nice as a corrective pattern. Liontown will be holding up reasonably well here. So we'll start to tune into these. We haven't seen these for ages. SQM here still needs to come down further. And this Brazilian one, it's not Brazilian, is it? Where is it? I can't remember now. But anyway, this one also needs to come down further as well. And you can see that anyway. Don't need to be there. And also, this one here, Piedmont, also needs to come down here further as well here. So I'm still looking at this being a correction here, because the beginnings of all of this were corrective, so we can stay with that. But 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, so I still need to get down here a little bit further. But yeah, so instead of looking at lithium ETF, which is not a very clean ETF, we'll look at these stocks and we'll tune back in with those. So I need to go over to crude oil at the next, but I'm just going to use some of these charts here as well. So this is crude here. So we're having a look at crude here. So we've got this is the daily chart for crude, and there's different ways to count all this, but this is the same count I've got pretty much. This can also be viewed as an ABC pattern up here, but basically anywhere between 80 and 83 was pretty much the 50-60% retracement level that we were looking at for this to play out. And 8, you know, in terms of numbers, 1 is the strongest, then 5, then 8. So it's the third strongest number. So we're looking at 80, and here this 8 here is a major level. So we'd always it's a bit like Bitcoin hitting 65, which is a medium level. These are big numbers, and they play their part. And but this hasn't fully been rejected yet as an impulse wave down here. But that's what we'll be looking at. He's got a bearish confirmation here because it will overtake this first little leg here. So he's labeled this here as an A and a B and a C up here. Taking that out there would trigger a short trade, but I wouldn't go chasing that just yet. We'll get the first 5 waves down, and then we'll get the retest to come into play, and we'll short the retest on this. But crude oil could be finished, because crude oil will also work lower with the US dollar, and the yields, they'll all be moving together as the bonds move up. So that's how they sort of move in that fashion. So we weren't expecting too much up, so we could have a turning point here for crude, and that puts us over to, I'm just going to go down into natural gas here, so just bear with me. I might have to go back up here and go the other way with this, so just bear with me for a second till we get to the top. And natural gas, so basically it was retesting $2. Now the 38.2% retracement level was a little bit higher than the $2 level here, and I think we actually just have another little high in here as well. So it's not the easiest count up here, but it does make a nice 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5 to this point. But we have made another little high here, so that's a little bit confusing for me, but I'm just going to chill on that, and we'll just see how it plays out across this level here at the $2. So it's not ready to short yet, not ready to do anything. We'll give it 2 sessions, and then we should have some sort of setup on this. So we just need to wait that out. Okay, I'll try to get through everything as quickly as possible and cover as much as I possibly can. So to summarize, we're still looking for a break lower in the US dollar. We think that will be the case because we're seeing gold push up. We're seeing the yields, the US 10-year yields and the bonds and all of those all across the world move lower, and putting pressure on the bearish side of the market for the yields, and also the bonds are popping higher as well. So I think that we've got the turn, but we still can't confirm it, but it does appear to be there, which will also set us up for some currency moves, the euro dollar and the Aussie dollar and a couple of other crosses and so on to the upside as well. So a big change could be occurring once that US dollar breaks lower. So really a nice, with the, say on the Dixie for the US dollar, the 103, the retested resistance would be a pretty good sign that we're on our way at that point. Alrighty, thanks for tuning in. Cheers.